Thank you. Yes, the magic clicker. Awesome. Cool. How's everybody doing? Good? Awesome. Well, thanks for coming out. I know some of you are out super late, so this will be fun. I'll keep the energy super high. So for today, I just want to go through how you can actually build a product that sells itself in the AI era. So for those that don't know who I am, as you kind of mentioned, I write books on product-led growth. I absolutely am obsessive with product-led growth. And what I want to share with you today is how can you scale smarter, faster, without necessarily having to scale your entire business only on sales people. So it's like, how do you get your product to be easy to use, to have some people to try it out and just love it so much that they upgrade themselves? And so what I am and why I'm here is because we've been helping a ton of different clients across all different SaaS companies and to really figure out what are the patterns that really help companies succeed and scale much, much faster with product-led growth. And so what I do on my day-to-day when I'm not giving talks and not helping clients is I study some of the fastest growing companies. So on the ProductLed podcast, is anybody here a listener on the ProductLed podcast? Okay, awesome. We got a few more people than I thought. That's awesome. So I always interview the founders. I love digging in to figure out why. Why are you growing so fast? And right now I'm studying all the AI companies that are growing from 0 to 100 million in annual recurring revenue in less than 12 months. And then I identify, what are those reoccurring patterns? I get super curious. I'm like, I've seen this thing again and again and again. Okay, let's unpack that. And then I try and boil it down into a framework or something simple, which I'm going to share with you today as far as what that looks like. But before I do, I have a fun question, which is, what do all these products have in common? So just put up your hand. If you can think of like maybe one or two things. What do these products have in common? We got Cursor, Lovable, Bold, Perplexity. AI, yes, they're all AI driven. Anybody else? Yes. Yes, absolutely. They are PLG first. You can sign up for free. You can try these apps. Anybody else have something? Yeah. So what was that again? Bad logos. Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to like a lot of the commonalities here, we got one of them, which is they have a great product-led motion. So what's been really interesting lately is we've been analyzing like all of the world's fastest growing companies. So Brex recently published a study of like the 50 fastest growing companies. And I went through every one of their websites and I was like, okay, let's see what are the commonalities. All of them have an option where you can try before you buy. And we're going to get into why that is, because they can scale so much faster if they have a self-serve motion. The other thing, we're not going to touch too much on this today, but of course, you got to have a great product. And when I talk about having a great product, not a good product, what I'm really referring to here is your product, 4 out of 10 better than the competition? Or is it like a 1 out of 10? We're slightly better than the competition, but not much. And so what I want to share with you today is what are those 3 things that you can do starting today to build a product that sells itself. So the very first one I want to go through with you is what I call the output experience. So can anybody relate with this? Like nobody wants to go to the gym, but we all want the body. It's like if we could sign up for something where it's like you're going to get that 6-pack, no gym required, and there's no health risks or anything like that, I'm sure a lot of us would be like, yeah, sure, why not? If we can do that. But there's work required in order to do something like this. And so if you look at the difference between traditional SaaS and AI native SaaS, it's becoming pretty obvious. What is the biggest difference between the two? So if you look at the top, you'll see, okay, traditional SaaS, we focus a ton on user experience. We want to make things easy to use. And then we also have a little bit of a longer time to value. But the main thing and the differentiator between a traditional SaaS and AI native is your user has to do the work. They have to go to the gym. They have to show up. They have to do everything on their own, usually, to use your tool. And that usually results in 30-plus steps to value. Whereas your AI native company, what's really cool about it is you can sign up. And usually within 60 seconds, you get an output something tangible. You can see what it looks like. And the AI is actually doing all of the heavy lifting for you. So that's why those products are growing really quick. And if you're creating a web app or creating a new website or something like that, if you're given the choice between using a traditional SaaS, where you're like, okay, I gotta figure out how to use this thing, versus, hey, just build something and go through, type what you want. What do you want your site to look like? Which experience do you prefer? Think about that for yourself. Anybody here prefer the AI-driven experience where you can just type in, you go through it? Yes, absolutely. It's way more easy. And the main thing I'll remind you about here is when it comes to why we're doing this, why I'm here today to kind of share the top 3 patterns of the fastest growing companies, it comes down to this. People prefer the output experience versus just only relying on user experience. That does not mean user experiences are relevant and you don't have to worry about that anymore. But what it does mean is we got to think about what is the output you can do in your product in an insanely short period of time so people truly get where your product can be. Now, you might be thinking, well, it sounds good, but why? Why does this really matter? So one of the most amazing parts, if you look at the fastest growing companies, is they're actually targeting different people. If you look at their total addressable market, it's actually going from what I call builders to editors. And so a builder, a lot of you here are probably builders. You can use other SaaS tools, you can figure them out pretty quickly, and you're like, I'm tech savvy, I've got it. And so you, on the tech spectrum, you're great. But when it comes to editors are people where they're like, I can describe my problem. I can describe the website I want, but I'm not really a web developer. I'm not really somebody that can build an app, but I can prompt my way through it. And so if you use Claude Code as an example, if you look at on the left, before Claude Code, it's like, okay, you're only targeting developers, let's say. Okay, it's a coding app. That's amazing. There's only so many developers in the world, though. That's the problem. Versus if you look at how many editors there are here, how many of you have vibe coded something? Yes, almost all of us. And so this is what I'm getting at. When you create an amazing output experience, and when you make it so easy, anybody can do it, then you unlock a much, much bigger total addressable market for your business. But how do you do this in your business? How do you actually create a good output experience? Because I don't know about you, but I've signed up for many, many apps, and sometimes I get an output, and I'm like, that thing is just not that good. It's not that interesting at the end of the day. So what I want you to think about for your product is, what could that first strike be? So when they sign up for your product, what is that first thing you could get somebody to do where they're like, oh, wow, this product is super unique, and I can't believe I was able to do that so quickly. And so I'll give you one example, but I want you to sit with this question of what is that first strike for your product? Because I was working with this one client called Hyped It, and they have this really interesting platform where it helps you promote your music. So for anybody that creates music, they're like, great, we'll make it easy to create Spotify ads so you can get more listeners for whatever music you create. And so I was working with the founder, he's an amazing guy, but the current setup was you had to manually set up meta ads. It was boring, and it took forever. And many of these music hobbyists, they're like, forget it, this is a hobby, this feels like work, this whole meta ads thing, and I don't see any value very quickly. And so they got demotivated, and then they didn't actually sign up and upgrade. And so what we did, and we talked through, was like, what could somebody actually do in 60 seconds? And so if you start with that kind of challenge, what could be something people could do in 60 seconds? We came back to, well, if you had the Spotify link to the song you wanted to promote, well, start there, upload it to the site, and right away, we can give you a music campaign, a link you can easily share to promote it on social media and all your other sites, and that, it's branded automatically. The AI looks at what genre the music is in, and then it designs it on its own. And so it was something very quick that people could easily see and kind of get as far as like, oh, wow, I can see the value of this product. And so to go back to this fun question is, what is your first strike moment? What could that be for your product? What is that one big thing? Because the next part, it just really goes back to, how do we get there as soon as possible? Because even if you have the perfect output, if you nail the output experience, if it takes forever for people to figure out how to actually get to that experience, well, guess what? Not many people are going to do it. All of the companies I shared at the top, the Cursors, the Lovables, the Bolts of the world, it's like they get you to that output very quickly, and then you're able to see, okay, I get this product. I totally understand the value. So for those that just joined, this is step 2 of how to build a product that sells itself in the AI era. And this part is probably my favorite, where we're talking about how do you actually get people to wow in just 60 seconds. So we had Malaya from the ProductLed podcast on, and she had this great quote. She's like, AI products are meant to be experienced, not explained. And right now, I don't know about you, when you sign up for a lot of AI apps, it's kind of like, my goodness, like sometimes it's just surprising what you're able to do. And that, it won't last forever when it comes to just user expectations. So right now we're in this sweet spot of people can still get wowed by your product. And so I want us to do a little bit of an activity here. I'm just curious where everybody's at in this room. So I want everybody to just stand up real quick. Stretch. There we go. Awesome. Now do 50 jumping jacks. I'm kidding. Now, I want you to sit down if you get users to value in less than 60 seconds. Okay, so we got one person. Anybody else? 2? Okay, awesome. So out of an entire room, 2 people. That's awesome. Now, I want you to sit down if you get users to value under 1 day. Okay, so we got another. That's a good amount. I'll call that like 50%. Now, if it takes more than 3 days, you can sit down. All right. More than a month? Sorry. I did this activity once with a tech conference, and it was a lot of people in hardware, and I had more of these questions, like more than 3 months, more than 6 months, more than 12 months, and they were still standing. I was like, oh, man. I like working with software people. This activity is easier. But the thing is, if you're at 3 days, it's like, okay, how can we get this to 1 day? If we're at 1 day, how can we get this to less than an hour, then less than 60 seconds? I'll give you one example that is really thoughtful. So how many of you are sales-led? Like the only way you can sell is if you talk to somebody in sales. Wow, so everybody else is product-led. This is interesting. So this example is still relevant if you're a product-led as well, but Illumens, they were a sales-led company that does insurance compliance. And so when they came to us, they're like, we have a really long time to value. It takes forever for people to get to value. And so the interesting thing, if you're sales-led, when I asked them, like, how long does it take people to get to value? A lot of people started with, well, let me think about how long it takes me to onboard a customer. So they might say it's a day. It takes a day to get to value. But then we started looking at, like, how long does it take for them to book a sales call and actually have that call with you? And they're like, well, on average, like 9 days. Okay, so 9 days later. And then they have the second call. And I'm like, how long does it take for people to have that second call? They're like, well, usually it's within a week if they're interested. So I'm like, okay, now we're at like 2.5 weeks. And then it's like, okay, then they get to talk to the CSM and start working, integrating into the product. And then I'm like, it's almost a month before they experience the value of the product. And so what was fascinating with Lumen is we just broke down the first principles of what does somebody need to do in order to see value in your product. And what we created is this really fun clickable prototype where it's like all people needed to see is where are they not compliant and where are they compliant. So we created this fun clickable prototype where it's like, okay, great. You want your vendor compliance? You can easily sign up. You have 3 vendor agreements you can upload for free so people can get a taste test of what your product can do. And then you go in. You just upload the vendor agreement. Great. And it's so simple. You go through this whole process. Then I was talking to their founder, and they were like, but these insurance people, super skeptical. They don't trust AI yet. So I was like, make this whole process really slow. and just go through everything that the AI is doing to build trust. Because sometimes if it's instantaneous, we don't trust it that much. And so we went through what are those top things that all of those insurance people are looking for when they're analyzing the documents. What is their own checklist that they go through? I want to showcase that on the analyzing screen. And then we just simply showcased, hey, this is the errors we found in this vendor agreement. This is the stuff you need to fix. And within 60 seconds, it's like, boom, here's the value. And then all you have to do is upgrade at the end of this to really see if you want to solve this problem in your own business. And so one thing I'll leave with you, and I was sharing this in the workshop yesterday, and a couple of people came to me, they're like, this was the best part. But I'll share it again here because it's fun to think about. You can press on the gas when it comes to getting people to value faster than ever before with AI. But the thing I want you to press the brake on is the Betty Crocker effect. So what the heck is this? You might be thinking, what is Betty Crocker? And Sarah from Chart Mogul was funny when she pointed out, she's like, I don't think they sell Betty Crocker cake mixes in Europe. They're way too healthy for Europeans. Like they have like higher standards when it comes to health stuff, whereas in North America, like they sell this like fake cake mix basically. And so all you had to do initially when Betty Crocker came out was you put a little water in the cake mix, throw it in the oven, and you get a cake. Simple, right? And then they did a lot of user research because sales weren't taking off. And then they're like, why are sales not taking off? And that's when they decided, they're like, oh, everybody feels like this isn't really wholesome. It's not really healthy or anything like that. So they just came back and said, well, let's throw an egg in it. Just crack a couple eggs, and then it feels wholesome. It feels like it's yours. And so when you're stepping on the gas for getting people to that output experience for your own product, don't lose sight of the Betty Crocker effect. What is that thing that people can input that makes it theirs? Because if you just skip that step, which you can, it's easy, you will lose them, and they won't actually trust that output. So aim for 60 seconds to value, but also make sure that you get people to that point where they're like, I actually love this output at the end of the day. So my question for you is, as people are going through your experience, what might be those one or two things you could do to really get people to feel like, hey, this is mine, this is what it looks like, without overwhelming them? Because back to the biggest difference of how do we build a product that sells itself in the AI era, the AI still needs to do the majority of the work, but what is that thing, the input that will help us get the better output? Now, we've got two of the three things done. We've got the output experience discussed, we've got 60 seconds to value, but even if you just do those two things, you're still missing out on one really important piece, which is how do you maintain that advantage? It's one thing to have a really cool AI product, but it's another thing to be like, this product is just better than everything else. And most people will have you think, oh, I need to spend, a massive amount of money to create a preferential difference. It's about features. It's about adding more stuff to the product. But I want to share an example as well in this where that is absolutely not the case. It's because I truly believe that preference is becoming the new mode, because it's never been easier to build new products than it is. I was talking to this one founder at a conference last week, and he's like, we started with this massive roadmap in December, and then we gave everybody on our development team Claude Code, and we finished the roadmap February. This was supposed to take for the entire year. And so he's like, Wes, building product is easy now. It's all about distribution. And I was like, kinda. Like, distribution's important, but today you can build any product very quickly, but building something that wins preference, that is still extremely hard. And so when we were talking with Yasser on the ProductLed podcast, this also resonates as well. Like, it's very easy to compete, or it's very hard to compete on products based on features, because you can copy those features super quickly. So when you look at the difference between traditional SaaS, AI native, traditional will try to do just more features, best-in-class options. We have a flexible approach. You can do so much in our application. Whereas a lot of AI native companies, especially the ones I was referencing that are growing a lot faster, they take a different approach. They have a strong point of view, and they have best-in-class taste. And more importantly, they have an opinionated approach to how they solve the problem. So I'm excited about this example because this one will showcase the point. So I was working with this company called Spox. They're an email marketing platform. And if you go to their website, it will say, like, we are cheaper than Klaviyo, basically. Like Klaviyo, but $35 per month, flat rate. And I was like, okay, this positioning is interesting. It's definitely going to attract a certain crowd. But the product, when we went through the whole sign-up flow, I was like, it's pretty forgettable. It's standard. Setting up an email marketing platform, it's a lot of work. He's like, yeah, and the only people that really become our customers are the ones that, they put up with all this work, and they're okay with it because they really want the deal at the end of the day. And I was like, okay, like you could win that way, the small section of the market, but what is something that will help you compete against the gorilla in the room, which is Klaviyo. Klaviyo, if you don't know who they are in the Shopify ecosystem, they are like the 800-pound gorilla. They have tons of features, and they're super hard to compete with, and they're going up the enterprise market. And so I was like, how do we win against something like a Klaviyo? And what we ended up coming up with is David, the founder, he had this awesome idea actually on his website. He had written multiple blog posts about it. He just hadn't realized it himself. He was like, if you're going to be a good Shopify business owner, especially on the email marketing front, you gotta have these 7 email campaigns and SMS campaigns. Like if, Walter, if you fill out that cart and you don't buy something, it's like, I want to follow up with you. I want to go through that experience and check in, like, hey, did you forget? Well, what else? And so you have to have those email campaigns. And so he became opinionated about it. He eventually said, hey, actually, everybody's got to have this, especially when they start the product. And so he actually decided that was going to be his first strike for the output. He was like, everybody that starts is going to be able to get those 7 email campaigns built out in 60 seconds. What we're going to do, we're just going to ask for their Shopify store URL, and we're going to look at their brands. We're going to look at how they talk on their blog. And guess what? We're going to customize all those email campaigns for them. And then he kind of walked away from this process being like, I can actually win preference, because for somebody who's just starting out, what's the hardest thing? It's creating the emails. It's not actually setting up the tool. A lot of these early stage Shopify business owners, they spend so much time going through hiring marketing agencies and going through like, how do I actually make money from email? And so if you're thinking about how do I win preference in my business, there's 2 things I want you to take away from this. The first one is, what is the pervasive pain in your market? So if I go back to Spox and the email marketing platform, setting up the email marketing tool, that's actually the easy part. The hard part is, how do you make money from email and SMS? That is the pervasive pain every Shopify business owner struggles with. So what is that in your category? And a lot of times, since I work with a lot of SaaS founders as well, is just thinking about, what does that look like for you? Because you are usually in your market, you're focusing on your tool, but think about the overall problem you solve in your business. What is the hardest part of solving that? And then I want you to get opinionated about it. What is your unique take on how to go through this? And I actually had another chat with a founder last week from Scribe. They do like LinkedIn posts, and they make it easier to do LinkedIn posts. And when I went through this activity with her, she was like, oh my goodness, it's very meta for her, because she was like, it's about people need to share their opinion on LinkedIn. I can't just scrape all the thought leaders in their space and showcase, hey, like this is what you should post. It's like, what's your unique angle on that? Why? And that's actually the content that generates the most value and the most clicks, the most interest from people as well. So think about for yourself, what could you get more opinionated about when it comes to your approach and how do you serve your customers? Because you usually don't give yourself as much credit as you should, as far as, do you know the best way to help your customers solve that specific problem? And so if your customers can't get to the alternative, or like they try an alternative and they're like, if they don't feel like that approach is outdated or anything else like that, you haven't won preference yet. So keep going on that treadmill to really figure out, okay, what is going to help us win preference in our business. And so to recap today, there's 3 things I want to leave you with when it comes to how do you build a product that sells itself in the AI era. First thing first is you need to nail that output experience. What is that thing you could give people tangibly, like an artifact, very quickly, and ideally in less than 60 seconds. Now, it's not possible for every company to do 60 seconds or less. I know there's some enterprise companies here where you're like, this is not true, can't make it work. But the challenge itself is where the beauty comes from. Because even if you start off with like, what could we do in 60 seconds? Like it was possible. You'd be surprised the number of times you can find something that's really amazing that you can do in your product. And then the last step here is really just think about how could we win preference? What is an opinion, an approach to solving this problem that is different than the market? And let's lean into it. Let's have our product just make that the default. Everybody starts off with that, and we can customize it from there. So as we wrap up, I want to give you all a gift. Since I am very product-led, I want to give you something that will help you actually implement this as well. So I literally just rewrote this book, the Product-Led Growth one, and this book goes through really just how to do this in your own business. So if you want a free copy, you'll see on like the checkout, it's $29, but it has a code, so it's free. So don't worry about that. But thank you all for being here and joining me at the first talk of the day. Happy growing. Awesome.